Welcome to Bleav in Rams, presented by FanDuel. Erin Coscarelli back with you. Voice is back. My mic might have not made it back from San Francisco, so I am using my computer audio. But guess what, guys? It'll be okay. We've got Matt Sims, former pro quarterback for the NFL, co-host of a show that I love. Is it weird to say I am obsessed with the Sims Complete show? You and your dad. I listened to one of the more recent ones break down so much about Stafford, which I think we should get into since both of you guys have unique perspectives about it. But first and foremost, guys, Matt Sims joining the show. Mr. Sims, how are you doing? How are you feeling?
How am I feeling? I'm doing well. I'm back on the East Coast. I really never got on West Coast time.
Okay.
But back to East Coast living, back to East Coast cold weather. So that's a whole nother thing. San Francisco was definitely very refreshing. Had to basically lie to my wife about how nice the weather was.
Yeah.
I was like, it's not that nice. It's only 60 and, light breeze, no big deal, But, for us, it's, hey, what a week, man. It really just, I know that you were busy. I saw you bouncing around there in Media Row. I wanted to actually say hi to you, but just so much stuff was going on. You know how that goes. But yeah, great reminder of just how many great people there are in the game right now.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of one of the more underrated stories, Matt, was like, I walked out of the hotel room. I'm like, are we in San Francisco right now? I think it was like highs of 70s. Hopefully the wife doesn't listen to this podcast because we had a terrible time. Weather was awful.
Terrible. Awful city. Hated it. Yeah.
The San Francisco weather, you guys came in clutch. We really appreciate it. So
really, yeah. And just the hospitality of the city, the food scene was fantastic. And just like New York City, you just got a great mixture of different cultures there and so many different just styles of food and everything mixed up though. So it was really a special week for sure.
Yeah. I was having a little anxiety about how I remembered San Francisco 10 years ago. I don't know if you recall, but it was absolute mayhem. Of course, the veteran move for people in the industry, unless you're going to the game or you're press covering the game.
Yeah.
Being in that environment, albeit so cool, and Levi Stadium is one of the coolest stadiums in the NFL. It's always madness. And I'm like, as I've gotten older, I've become less inclined to want to fight and battle it out with the crowds. But I thought San Francisco, the city, the host committee, they nailed it. It was so great. They even, I do want to get your opinion, your talk before we get into some of the Rams stuff. What did you think about the game? What did you think about the halftime performance? Might have been a little controversy there, but what was your overall take with how you saw Super Bowl 60 10 years later in San Francisco, because Super Bowl 50 was there? What was your take of the whole experience?
Yeah, I was there for Super Bowl 50 as well. That was actually the last Super Bowl that my father called as the lead analyst there for CBS. And just, an awesome moment too. I got to see my friend Malik Jackson as well win a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos, who played defensive tackle for them at the time. So that was hanging out with my former Jets teammate, Zach Sudfeld, and seeing him, who's a California guy, and all that. So that was a very special weekend. It really was, as far as just, and it was different because I was still playing. I was still doing all that stuff. So it was obviously my weekend that time around was kind of like that video that was surfacing with like Puka Nacua out at night during the Super Bowl, right? It was like, that was how I was entertaining myself.
Yeah.
Maybe not to that extent. But either way, this time around in the media, a part of SiriusXM, Bleav, ESPN, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Much more locked in and focused. To some degree, but still had time to meet up with some colleagues and network and do all that. So now the game aspect of it, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I love games that way because, to me, like real football fans, and like, I hate to say that, but just like people who really love the game understand that was highly stressful. That even though Seattle was dominating the football game where it was 9-0 or 12-0, that there was only maybe one or two plays that go in a different way, and New England could have really recaptured all of that momentum and changed how that game went. Of course, that's not how it played out, but it just to me, it just speaks to just the depth of the game and how important the other aspects and other positions in this game are. And of course, we always talk about the quarterback, and we're going to do all that. And I know that I'm a former quarterback, so I love talking about the position, but damn, we get lost too often with just like this quarterback versus this quarterback. And it's like, yeah, but there's also 10 other people on both sides of the football, or 11 in some case, right? And just like, they're all making huge impacts. And I think that's what was great reminder for everybody.
Yeah, it's interesting to get your perspective. You were in support of the game. I mean, I was fielded so many text messages. Oh, the game's so boring, and like the snooze fest and halftime show. What did you think of the halftime show? You liked it?
Halftime show, I loved it. I feel it's a little unfortunate, I think, for people in the stadium, because that definitely seemed like a halftime show that was built for TV and for the people at home, especially from talking to a few fans that were there in person, kind of having that same sense. But my wife is Colombian, and, you know, for our family, that is a super special moment for the whole Latin culture and community, and for my son and daughter to be a part of that culture and to be Latino and to be proud of it and to celebrate that on that scene, on that stage, the way that he did. And also, too, just the way that he included all the other countries on this side of the world, and just, you know, super powerful, super special message, I think, and a lot of fun too. And I think for fans out there, you know, what Bad Bunny ultimately was trying to show you and his team was just like, that was the day in the life of what it means to be Latino, right? What it means to be, you know, a Spanish American, or just someone who comes from these Spanish speaking dominant countries. So we got to see what it was like to have a full day, right, in that type of environment. And I think that's very special, you know, to be included in that, whether you were aware of it or not. So yes, in our family, it was definitely a very joyous moment. And probably my favorite video of the week is me and my wife dancing, you know, together in our living room, watching this halftime show. And me probably watching more than dancing, because once my wife starts dancing, I'm like, whoa, this is impressive. So
I appreciate hearing you say that. I think that was what my takeaway was from that moment. It was really special. And a lot of my best girlfriends, I was at the house of a girlfriend and her whole family, and they're Latin, from Mexico. And I, you know, growing up in LA, a lot of my friends have that culture. Yeah. In fact, I had dated somebody who was from Cuba, and there's this invitation to like that culture, that the music alone, for some reason, just makes you want to get up and like hug somebody, or like, it's just an expression of love that I've always appreciated, which is why my friends are my friends and tend to have leaned into a more like Latin adjacent, I would say. And so to even think about it from the NFL's perspective, what a risk for them to take to, you know, now, you know, it's so controversial whether the NFL should have done that. I thought, hey, that was really cool. It was risky for the NFL to do it. It was so celebratory. I felt it was unifying. I mean, the performance alone was amazing and incredible. So I think I appreciate when the NFL makes choices like that are not always the first. Like, I remember when they announced that he was performing, I thought, oh, that's risky, or that's interesting. And I think you have to taking a look at what the Rams have done. The Rams ethos is defiantly original. And the reason they have that ethos is because they actually do want to take risks. And when you're the NFL, guys, the NFL is the #1 most popular watched sport in the country. They don't have to do that. That's right. But I think in many ways, you should. We want to figure out, how do we tap into the emotion and the ethos of young people? Like, what are young people doing? And you know, maybe if we shift gears and talk a little bit about Sean McVay and how you've seen him as a coach, the big news that came out during the week of Super Bowl was Cliff Kingsbury looking to get added as a coaching staff. And one of the questions I had asked McVay this season was like, how does that make you feel when you know so many guys end up getting quote unquote poached from your coaching staff? It happens almost every year. Some guy leaves and gets either a head coaching job or a more elevated job. And he's like, it's great for us. It says so much about us and what we do and what matters to us. It's hard because you have to figure out a replacement.
Yeah.
But one of the things I thought was interesting is he's always curious about what other people, like he has an open mind he's like, it's a great opportunity to bring in some fresh eyes to the table. That seems like that matters if you're a coach, right? To have
absolutely. It definitely does. And also just to kind of piggyback off something you said earlier too. I mean, yeah, just the NFL was able to show that just like the game that's played between the lines, it includes a lot of different peoples from a lot of different backgrounds and races and cultures and religions. And, the halftime show reflected, I think, another aspect of that. And by the way that our world works and the way that the future of sports is going, with boys and girls being involved, with us breaking these borders, right, between them over there and all this, it's like, we're all in this thing together, and that's the power of sports. That's why, Nelson Mandela leveraged it as well to change South Africa and their future. And, for us going forward, yeah, like I can't wait till one day we can proudly say that there's an NFL franchise that's in Mexico, that's in Colombia. And damn, I hope I'm the owner of the Colombian team or a part owner of it. That'd be fun as hell. So that's the next goal in life. But, either way, it's pretty special. Now to go back to what you just mentioned, Sean McVay is a pure educator. And when you're a pure educator in that sense, you can never know enough about the subject that you are fascinated by. And if you can be motivated or inspired by someone who has been in the same field as you, but maybe has been taught from a different lineage and all that, and it can just kind of jumpstart the way that you look at the game, I mean, like that's amazing. That's phenomenal. And I think that just speaks to just his professionalism. It speaks to obviously just his fact that like he can keep his ego in check and not always have that constantly control him. I'm saying like, well, I know more and he works for me. Yeah. I think that open collaboration among coaches, among teams is super powerful, very overlooked in the game of football. We always want to kind of point to, again, like the head coach and quarterback. And it's very easy because there's no doubt they have a heavy influence on the rest of the team. But, that's where I think Sean McVay, huge fan of him, the way that he carries himself. And the fact that he just, he's not afraid to show emotion. He's not afraid to call it exactly how he sees it. He's not afraid also, too, to backtrack and say, you know what, I did get a little too emotional. And, so I think for me, I'm a fan of Sean McVay because I'm a fan of the human being that he is. And for me, that's probably the most important thing as far as former player / coach when I look at the game is seeing that type of connection.
It's funny. I keep wanting to say the thing that I have said now the last 2 times you've answered is like, I like what you said there, but it's so true because one of the things that he would say during his press conferences, especially, latter part of whether it was going to be Chris Shula leaving or LaFleur leaving. Yeah. He said, I don't think you're a good coach if you don't have character. That is the first thing we look for here in the Rams organization. And and what he had espoused and said every press conference when he talks about accountability, he did it, right? Like there were so many moments throughout the season where he was not happy with his play calling. Yeah. He would be the first to give credit to someone else, but also the first to take the blame. And to be in the walls inside and be around a guy that talks like that and actually lives it, it's like, I see why everyone buys in. Yeah. This was really my first year being included as media to most, if not all, of the press conference gatherings. And I was taking every opportunity. I was showing up on Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, because I wanted to hear how not just this man handled football complications, but life complications. Yeah. One of the things that's interesting, I wasn't going to talk about this till later because I did want to talk about Stafford, Kingsbury, so many things, MVP, all that. But you had mentioned Puka, and one of the things that McVay did have to kind of talk about, which I felt for him, was handling and navigating some of the distractions of Puka as of late. At what point is Puka, what is he, 24? People send me the things that they see about Puka, and my answer is always like, look, he's 24. Can you imagine, or 25? But at what point do you, if you're in the building, you are a coach or you are an executive, do you kind of say, hey, we have to now look kind of beyond the fact that he's 24 and this is important to not be a distraction?
Yeah, it's definitely, there's a fine line there. It's very difficult to say when is the appropriate time. And really, when you're in that position of power, like Sean McVay and everyone else there within management, you want to, of course, you're basically just showing the door like, hey, here's the open door. Here's the access that you have. Just don't trip over yourself as you walk through it. Like, we're always here for you. There's always a resource. And it's like, hey, is Puka perfect? No. Am I perfect? No. Erin, I mean, you're phenomenal. You're perfect. Don't worry about it. But like, it's the reality of it too. Like, we're all, either growing and learning and improving or the opposite of that. And for Puka, it's a difficult situation, because he's 24 years old. I like to think that when I was 24, I was super mature too. Right. Yeah. I mean, wow, just smoked way too much weed at that age. And the truth is that Puka's doing well. He's battling that common trend that I think a lot of players have and a lot of athletes have, that when you reach a certain level, you do essentially feel like you are untouchable. And you need those people around you to keep you grounded, to keep you sane, because your boys over here, they're always going to tell you you're the best, right? And a lot of that's true. But it's also like, you have to be the best within the guise of like the bigger picture, right? Yeah. Of the team, and being team first mentality and focusing on the larger goals to then reach your individual goals. So, good thing for Puka is that, one, he's talented as hell. He's really good at what he does. He works hard. He's got great leadership around him, and he's going through natural growing pains that any 24-year-old would go through. He's just making a lot more money than the average 24-year-old. So, there's a few more doors of accessibility right to him. But for him, like all of us, he's got great people around him. Yeah. And that's where I think for his situation, it's going to be okay. It's going to work out all right. He's going to be a better player for it in the long run. And like all of us, we all go through these learning lessons, and it's just easy for, I think, fans to kind of critique it, because honestly, they're just jealous. That's really the truth of it.
That's right. Yeah. It's like I'm like, how can you not feel confident waking up every morning when you have the yards after catch and you make insane video game plays week in and week out? It's not like he is a distraction and doesn't show up and perform on a football field on Sunday and like kill it. Like, how can you not feel like somehow a little bit confident, because he does deliver on that message? I mean, he was so fire this season. And then to have Davante Adams, you're getting tutelage from Cooper Kupp in the beginning of your career. And then the ball gets handed off to Davante Adams. I'm like, wow, that's insane.
Special.
And Stafford is your quarterback. Speaking of Stafford, so you said something very interesting on your podcast, the Sims Complete podcast, such a great show with you and your dad. You break down, and you guys kind of had differing opinions, which I also really like your show for that reason.
Thank you.
You guys both kind of push back, and it's like such an interesting, like thought-provoking dialogue that you guys end up having when you evaluate the game.
Right.
But you did say, which is interesting, and I think it's a very good point. It certainly was a topic on, I remember Richard Sherman posted, he's like, well, the clear MVP based off of what we saw from Drake is Matthew Stafford, but it ended up being a pretty close call, right? By one vote, right?
Is that how close it was? I didn't even really pay attention to the vote count, because I was kind of prepared for Drake to be named the MVP. And I prepared myself essentially because I knew that just people really weren't looking and paying attention. And I think that's where I get frustrated. To me, the voting should have been a 1 point difference between Matt Stafford and Myles Garrett. That's my opinion. And everyone's like, well, Myles, the losing record and this and that. It's like, no, every time Myles Garrett walked on the field, he was the best football player on the field. I don't really give a damn what his record was. He was the most valuable football player on the field because you know what the opposing team was focused on? Let's not let this one guy ruin the game for us because we know their quarterbacks aren't very good. We know the offense stinks, but Myles Garrett will probably win the game single-handedly unless we do our jobs well. So let's not let him F it up. And still broke the sack record. So to me, MVP is a little bit of a frustrating conversation for me at times because, of course, we do always go to the quarterback as far as like, he's always, I think we lose sight a little bit of just like the importance of other positions. Again, we got that highlighted in the Super Bowl. We're so obsessed with quarterback play. Well, the quarterback play struggled because guess what? The other guys in the field are that freaking good. And let's celebrate that instead. But for this year's MVP, the way that it was and how it was nominated, to me, it was like not even close. Like it wasn't even debatable. And, when people are like, well, Drake May had this stat and that stat, it's like Drake May never, to me, you think about like the Heisman, right? Oh, what was the Heisman? Well, Fernando Mendoza, Penn State, right away. For Drake May, what was the moment where I was like, oh, he's the best player in the league? Meanwhile, Stafford, to me, it was like every week I was like, yep, he's the best quarterback in the league. Yep. Because if he's not doing these things, the Rams are probably a 500 football team. And I know that we were excited about the running attack and the defense early on in the year, but as the season progressed, it was clearly like, no, it's Stafford's team all over again. All these things that we were hoping for, all these things that we were trying to just project out there of like, oh, it's a better defense. It's this and that. It's like, yeah, they got better talent. They're getting better, but the scheme doesn't match the talent. There's still weaknesses there. And I think it would just reinforce to me just how special Matt Stafford is, especially this part of his career. And, he's a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback in my eyes. I think he's someone that clearly just gets overlooked so much in the discussion, even to the point where, Cooper Kupp's winning the MVP over him, but for the Super Bowl. But that's a whole nother topic. But that's just kind of how I felt about Stafford in this season and what he's able to do and the level of difficulty of his throws. And that's the thing too, like everyone talks about Puka's greatness, and this was a conversation I had with an ESPN colleague of mine where he's just like, well, he has Puka Nacua. It's like, yeah, I understand that, but Puka Nacua also has Matt Stafford. And the last time I checked, people who are breaking records at the receiver position all have one common denominator, whether it's Calvin Johnson, Puka Nacua, right, or Cooper Kupp. The common denominator is Matt Stafford, right? Not Sean McVay, not this or that. It's Stafford. So to me, that's just one of those things where I think people, again, they're kind of projecting like, oh, Stafford, the Lions and all that thing. And they haven't quite bought into the fact that like he is the best quarterback in the NFL, whether you like it or not. And just get used to it because if he comes back, he's probably going to be in that top 3 category again over players like Mahomes, over Joe Burrow, and all the darlings of the league that we want to project to be these greats. And it's like clearly Stafford is just kind of doing it without all the clout necessary.
Yeah. It is interesting. I mean, like for so long this season, we were talking about, is he going to be the MVP? Why is he not? I mean, what other stat does the man need to do? No less like to take away. I think some of the things that punished him, quote unquote, was that he had a Puka, a Devontae, a Sean McVay, whereas also, guys.
But like when you watch the film and the throws that he's making, it's just like, yeah, those guys they haven't seen that in their careers before. They wouldn't even have those opportunities. Even Devontae Adams, I think if you asked him like quietly in a room where it's just you and him, he'd be like, who do you think? You taking Stafford or you taking Rodgers? I think you'd be shocked by his answer, right? So that's kind of how I feel.
But I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. And the other thing that was heartbreaking was, the after game where both those guys, Staff and Devontae, emotional and real, obviously after the NFC Championship game. What I have appreciated with Stafford was, I remember I was doing an interview and I said, like the camera got like set up, and I kind of sometimes try to do personality pieces with like the tight ends, like, or the offensive line, like what's Stafford's favorite, how does he take his coffee? What's his favorite emoji?
Right.
Like just to listen the guys up and give a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tight hallway in the facility, in like where you like the locker room is.
Right.
Matthew Stafford, and he's tall. He bent, whereas like, you're just kind of passing through, you walk through the shot, no big deal. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. The guy got down on bended knee to make sure he did not interrupt my shot. And I'm like, you of all people, you could walk through the shot. And he was like, so the guy is very humble. And, obviously every Sunday we were looking at, what are the girls, the 4 daughters, how are they going to greet him? What are they going to wear? I mean, I just think him winning, forget the fact that he just absolutely dominated this season. And if you look at the situation he went through in the beginning of camp, where he didn't have availability, he was dealing with an aggravated disc. We didn't know if he's going to take one bad shot and be done for the season. Right. And then he comes and he does this. I mean, you don't even have to like football, Matt, to love what we saw from the Rams this season, and to be respectful of time, because I feel like we could just really break this down so much.
No, we're cool. Yeah, don't worry.
Moving forward. But you got to feel real good if you're Stan Kroenke right now, because you got Les and McVay locked up, for the hopefully foreseeable future. Stafford announced he's coming back. Somebody's going to have to take a discount. I don't know how we're keep getting back all these guys.
Yeah.
But when you take a look at the Rams moving forward, free agency is upon us soon. Mm-hmm. And then obviously we've got the draft. One of the things I want to make sure I hit on, because it's such an interesting point, is there's not a lot of data to support a 38-year-old quarterback coming off an MVP campaign, where the only other guy you really can compare this to is like a Brady, I guess.
Right.
Or maybe
I'm not even sure too what Matt Ryan's age was when he won the MVP in 2016. Right. But yeah, he was probably, he was probably like 32 or 33, but he still had plenty left in the tank. Tom still has plenty left in the tank. And I think that's where the game, as you get to that level and that age of wisdom at that position, the game kind of changes the way that you play. We've seen it with a lot of quarterbacks, as far as just, now their mind really is their biggest weapon, right? And I think the interesting thing when we discuss Matthew Stafford in particular is that I really haven't seen the drop-off physically with his throwing. If anything, he's kind of one of those ageless throwers where his motion and his mechanics are so solid and consistent that he's still generating a tremendous amount of power. He can still drive the football down the field relatively easily. And ultimately too, like the difference between him and a lot of other quarterbacks in the league is just that he has the ability to stand in the pocket and endure hits and still throw the football like super dynamically while enduring those hits. And that is a trait that, he's a one of one kind of in that world, as far as his age, his experience, his talent, and what the coaching staff is asking him to do every single week.
Yeah, you couldn't pay me enough money to go through what the Rams had to deal with when they went into Soldier Field to take those hits. I mean, he was coming in, Stafford had a sprained index finger from the game before. I'm like, you can't pay me enough money to do that. So his durability, his competitive spirit, I think if you take a look at FanDuel Sportsbook right now, of course, they have the Super Bowl next year, Super Bowl 61. The Seahawks are the favorite, but the Rams coming in at second at plus 800. Okay. To me, when do you think the right time is to bring in a new quarterback? Do you do it in free agency? Do you do it in the draft? And honestly, here's the biggest one of all. I'm like, who can be like smart enough, humble enough, and competitive enough for McVay to get along with? That's the other part of this whole equation that I'm like, McVay is so high level. He can only really work with someone who's got the offensive coordinator mentality like a Matthew Stafford. I'm like, who is even going to take the guy's place? But go ahead.
Well, that's the first part of it, really, probably for Sean as well in this process, is to understand that there is no Matt Stafford waiting for him, right? And that's part of it. So now the challenge for him and for all coaches, right, when you're graced with a presence like a Matt Stafford, who basically when you get him, he's already that chiseled piece of marble where it's like, it's a work of art. Now we just got to work on how to accentuate the things that he does really well. Now he goes back to the drawing board and starts to rebuild someone into potentially being that next Matt Stafford in the league. And there's no doubt that he has that ability to do that. Of course, with all coaches and with all quarterbacks too, time is always of the essence. Time to succeed, right? When that's going to happen and all that. What is the duration? How much growth and all that? When are they actually ready? It's like the same thing with Jordan Love. It's like, when is he ready? It's like he waited, like we're still kind of waiting. And like, so it's very debatable. There is no right or wrong answer to it. For Sean McVay, yeah, like, hey, and Snead, if you find a quarterback that you really like and you think that he's someone that you can potentially mold into being your guy, a year or two from now or whatever, or you think he's ready to go now, I mean, you got to get him on the roster. You're always trying to update your roster and be as just responsible as possible, right? Yeah. Especially to the quarterback position. I mean, Brock Purdy and Mac Jones are a perfect example of that this year and why it's important to have depth at that position. So Jimmy Garoppolo, solid backup, no doubt. Stetson Bennett, he's been in the league a little bit here. I think for his career, it's looking like he's going to be kind of a career backup, third string kind of guy at the moment. So I'm not exactly sure what they think as far as the future is for those two guys. But if they see someone, you gotta trust your instincts and go with it. And it's going to be a big shadow, though. There's no doubt. I mean, it took a minute, right, for New England to get out of that shadow, and luckily they found their rhythm and their groove and all that. But man, it definitely took a moment there for them to kind of really figure out, all right, what are we doing? How do we do this? And it all starts with coaching. And fortunately for the Rams fans, right, McVay, he's okay. He's gonna figure that out eventually.
I mean, I hope so. It's interesting. Yeah. I'm like, will he retire when Stafford retires? Let's say
that's a good point. Yeah.
We get 2 more years. The thing with McVay is had a second kid. Maybe his focus will change. I mean, I heard some ruminations of that from not fair sources. So that's not even a rumor, but it is a concern because you think about it, you're like, this man is so dedicated and so committed. And now, as anyone would or should or have the opportunity, maybe you want to shift gears and spend more time. We'll see. But,
it's a great point, though, because even my father mentions it with Bill Parcells and just being like, I'm like, hey, why did Bill leave? Like, you guys were at the top of the world, when he left. And he's like, well, you just he works so damn hard and he's so invested in everything that, these guys get burnt out. They kind of need to take a break, restart again. And, is that possible for McVay? I mean, yeah, by the way that he carries himself, it absolutely could be a possibility, right? Yeah. A guy like Matt Stafford being thrust upon his roster and all of a sudden he's got this new life to him, right? That's so right. It just depends. It does. But there's no doubt that coaching takes a toll on the person personally, their family life, all that. And sometimes just switching it up is a good thing, even for guys like Tomlin, even for guys like Harbaugh, taking a step back and then, re-entering again this whole world of football is not the worst thing, and I think that happens for everybody, no matter what you do as far as football goes.
Yeah, well, this has been an incredible show. I mean, it'll be a dark day in the event McVay ever, McVay and Stafford, let's just call it what it is, because it was such an incredible season.
It's not today. That's all we care about. Yes, it's not today. So we're good. That's all that matters. And we'll see.
Totally. Well, listen, I love picking your brain. I love listening to your show. You got to check out Matt Sims on the Sims Complete podcast. It is such a great show. You're still going to be busy too during the off season. You're going to be running around doing a bunch of stuff. What are you going to be doing?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're right back into, once I get my feet on the ground a little bit more, get back to coaching, some of the young quarterbacks here in the tri-state area. So excited about that. And then of course, the draft is around the corner. So fortunately for me, I do ESPN college football radio and a digital show that they also have, the college football show. So I've watched a lot of college ball already, kind of have a little bit of a head start on certain position groups that way. But yeah, got to get ready for the combine and the draft and all that. So we're going to be breaking down a lot of college tape here pretty soon. And it's going to be a really cool class. A lot of really good defensive linemen, linebackers coming out in this crew, and definitely could see some teams upgrading their teams very quickly through the draft process, especially on that side of the football, because there's a lot of really good game-changing talent on that side of the ball this year.
Well, it sounds like we're going to need to have you back, because we really didn't even talk about what the needs are moving forward and who the Rams really target in the draft. There was so much to talk about with the Super Bowl and the highlights.
I just teased my comeback to the show. So that's, I'm learning.
Matt, you've done this. You are a pro. You are a pro in many ways. We so appreciate you. Thank you for joining Bleav in Rams, presented by FanDuel. Matt Sims, check him out. He's on Twitter. He's got an awesome podcast called Sims Complete, and he's going to be all over the ESPN Draft digital show. So we'll have you on to talk draft. Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, guys. Go Rams. Appreciate it.